Well, sometimes hockey games are stupid, and it felt like that one was a stupid hockey game. Avs fall 5-2 with an empty netter on the island. They go 1-2 on the East Coast road trip, and they'll come home with their tails between their legs before they take on the St. Louis Blues for the first time this season at the end of the week. That's a team that you shouldn't lose to, much like the Boston Bruins at the beginning of this three-game roadie. You get the 2 points against the New York Rangers in cardiac fashion with 14 seconds to go. But this hockey game that you dominated in terms of puck possession, the Avs had 65 shot attempts on goal, or at net rather, through two periods of play. And it did hinge on one thing. It hinged on the Jack Drury goaltender interference call that would have tied the hockey game at 2. New York ends up burying one to go up 3-1. Drury gets his back on a little breakaway, beautiful pass from Marty Necas to make it 3-2. Then Colorado surrenders another and an empty netter to
Yeah, goaltender
their
interference.
mouth.
Oh,
Spring.
there we go. Yeah, no, I had okay. There we go. Internet.
Disappointing taste is what it leaves you with, Spring.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that the Avs lost a goal. Like when the Avs were down 3-2, and this thing was winding down. I was gonna tweet out, "Hey, the Avs lost to goaltender interference tonight." Goaltender interference has been playing really well this season, and is making a strong push. But no, then Alexander Romanov scores before Blackwood is pulled, made it 4-2. So even with the disallowed goal, still would have been 4-3 Islanders. Now, does the ebb and flow of that game change if Josh Manson's goal stands? Perhaps. Maybe the Isles don't score one or both of those late. It's a more competitive game. Avs grit down. I mean, let's just talk about the goaltender interference right now, man. Look, by the letter of the law, I saw Mark Mosher tweet this. He's right. By the letter of the law, that was goaltender interference. But I would like to see, like in the NBA, a new thing that I'm noticing in recent years is they use the phrase marginal contact when reviewing fouls. And if they deem the contact to be marginal, they let the play stand. Yes, Jack Drury ever so slightly just nudges, graces the blocker of Ilya Sorokin. The Manson shot is blocker's side. Maybe by 1% that affects his ability to move the blocker, but I would argue that is marginal contact right there.
I completely agree. I don't think it impeded Ilya Sorokin's ability to stop that puck whatsoever. And that's where the league needs to they need to have some sort of wiggle room for the referees, both on the ice and the officials watching the game back in Toronto. There has to be wiggle room to just use your goddamn common sense. Like that's what this has all started to become. And that's why I got so pissed off at that goal. Is that, again, thank Matt Duchene for this crap, because he was 17 feet offside all those years ago as a member of the Avs against Nashville. It's Matt Duchene's fault that the Avs lost this game. What this has gotten to is it's so important to get everything perfectly right when it comes to offside review, goaltender interference, that we're almost legislating the common sense out of the call and the common sense out of the game. And I tweeted out, and normally, again, I'm on my hiatus from tweeting during games, and I don't think that my tweet cost the Avalanche this game. Again, the Avs lost because of Matt Duchene, not me.
We need to stop it with the jinxes. Nate jinxing the Nuggets, you jinxing the Avs.
Thank you.
No.
So the issue is that you have to be able to make a judgment call based on the play at hand. Let the hockey players play the game, play the sport. If he actively impedes Sorokin's ability to stop that puck, I understand it. But if the twill on the 8 of Jack Drury's jersey happened to hit the blocker of Ilya Sorokin, about a half second before a puck got to Sorokin, that does not constitute goaltender interference. Goalies have to fight through screens. Goalies have to fight through sticks and chaos in front of them. Does that mean that they should be bowled over when a shot's coming through? No, absolutely not. But if there's some sort of incidental contact that doesn't change the actual nature of the save they're trying to make, let the play go. What are we doing at this point? It's not hockey. That's Patrick Waugh's the guy that decided to call to throw the challenge flag on that one. Patrick Waugh? You imagine if he had gotten that call in 1994, in 1986 when he was winning cups with the Montreal Canadiens? That dude had to fight through bazookas going through his chest.
Yeah, Kamara in the chat, maybe get your butt out of the middle of the crease. If you're talking about Jack Drury, look, players, you're allowed to play in the crease. The crease being a sacred area just for the goaltender, that's of days past, where if your skate was, if you as a skater, you had to avoid that blue paint at all costs. That's not the thing anymore. You can play in there. Now you do have to be mindful about making contact with the goaltender. And if you impede his ability to make the save, then it is goaltender interference. You watch that play though, and I really think if Drury doesn't nudge that blocker, I don't think it changes anything. I don't think Sorokin saw the shot. He was late to react in general. So, like you said, Raj, common sense would say that was going in no matter what. And if you want to go letter of the law on it, fine. But you're taking away goals. You're getting way too picky and stingy. And I thought that this league wanted goals. I thought that they wanted higher scoring games so the Stars could shine and high scoring drama. You robbed this game of some drama here tonight. It was a bad watch. The third period ended up to be nothing. It's a 5-2 win. This would have been a competitive game otherwise for a play that was, common sense would say, inconsequential.
100%. I think that's the best way that you can put it. And I saw a couple of comments yesterday or 2 days ago after the show, and then also wanted to start here. In the comments, let me know, I got a new microphone. Is the microphone not cutting it right now? Spring, does it sound?
I think it's your S's. It's your S's.
My S's go away?
No, yeah. It sounds like you got my lisp going sometimes.
Okay.
Obviously it is the microphone. So you'll work on that.
What if I take off the mic cover? How are my S's now? My S's better. Feel better. I feel better. Okay. Maybe it's the mic. Oh, it clicks. What do you mean clicking? Does it like?
Oh, I'm not hearing any clicking.
All right. Well, we'll try and.
Maybe there's a little static.
I have no idea.
I don't know. I can barely.
I sound good.
Anything.
I sound good in my ears. The sound in my Bose headphones right now, which I just unearthed these as we're trying to move things around the house. I haven't worn these things in a decade. They still slap, man. They still slap. They really do. What were we talking about? Goaltender interference. Oh yeah, it's crap. It did change the game. And while the Avs were not on their P's and Q's after that call and you give up the Romanov goal, by the way, Romanov, really good game today. That little crunch that he had against Cale Makar, it does change the outcome of the game. The Avs had complete control of the puck for the second period. They tie that thing up, this result. New York's not a good team, but they're playing good right now. And they've now won 5 straight. Patrick Waugh has kind of drug them up by their bootstraps. You should have gotten more than just 2 points out of a possible 6 here.
It was similar to the Boston game on Saturday, although the Avs, I think, overall, start to finish, played better than they did in Boston, but similar in that the Avs dominated the chances, the shots, the offensive zone time, and don't come away with a single point. Similar in that respect. Similar in that New York and Boston are similar teams. They're both mid. They're both good, okay, middle-of-the-road teams right now. I do think New York, and man, Boston, I feel like that team, they're like 5 games over 500 coming out of that Avs win. They got crushed in Buffalo tonight, which should that and Buffalo hasn't had a good season, but that should have happened. The way if you watch Boston play on Saturday, you could have forecasted this Sabres win over the Bruins tonight. Bruins have 56 points. Islanders have 51 points. But like you said, they've won 5 straight. I think New York is a more complete team than Boston right now. They are a more physical team. They played very physical tonight. Bo Horvat had a very good physical game. Obviously, Alexander Romanov did as well. They might not have a ton of skill, but they're veteran, top to bottom, solid physical team. They have good goaltending with Ilya Sorokin. So, hey, good for Patrick Waugh. He's got his team playing well. They might convince themselves they're going to be buyers here at the trade deadline, which I think would be a little bit of a mistake. In their own division, we can talk about this right here. They ain't catching Carolina. Carolina, they look damn impressive tonight going into, and they're not catching the Capitals. They're not catching the Devils. So I wouldn't be buyers if I was the Islanders. But right now, Carolina, that was a dangerous win that they had in New York. The Rangers, good on paper. They dropped 2, to the 2 teams that have made this trade in the past few days. Lost to the Avs, lost to the Hurricanes, both on home ice. Been a weird season for the Rangers. They're under kicking their coverage, and it just feels like things just aren't going right for them right now. But man, in that own division, in the Islanders division, how about those Hurricanes tonight? And how about Mikko Rantanen getting his first point as a Hurricane? Nice little cute little setup to Andrei Svechnikov there from Mikko.
It was a nice setup, and Mikko did have a good game there. I was watching that when I wasn't watching the Avs game because the other one that was on ESPN Plus or Hulu this evening was the Carolina and Rangers game. Going back and forth was fun to see there. It's going to take a while to figure out who won this trade, and I think you have to wait until you see what McFarland does with the $5 million of cap space to see what the actual full mark is for the Avalanche here. The fit for Rantanen looks good in Carolina. I think the fit for Marty Necas looks awesome in Colorado. The pass that he makes to Jack Drury is ridiculous. The secondary assist that he had tonight on the Lehkonen goal from the seat of his pants was wonderful. Necas fits like a glove. He's not Mikko Rantanen, man. He's not a 100-point player, but that guy fits perfectly in this system.
The only thing that they're still working through is the now increase in right-handed shots on this team. They're still trying, the power play. Once again, Raj. My gosh, 2 for their last 34, something like that.
2 for their last 34.
Oh my goodness. They got to figure it out. They got to figure out the increase in right-handed shots. You put in Necas, you lose Mikko. They're so used to that big left-handed shot over there, so they got to figure that out. Let's see. The Lehkonen goal from his ass tonight. That's a great little play from Necas and McKinnon to set that thing up, and I think that was off of a face-off, off of an icing call. It was off of an icing call, and the Islanders didn't like the icing call. Face off in the O-zone. So I think that Lehkonen was out there with Necas and McKinnon to start. I could be wrong. There could have been a little line change when the puck got out into the neutral zone, but I think Lehkonen started out there with those two, and I noticed Lehkonen with Necas and McKinnon a couple times in the third period as well, trying a couple different things, perhaps taking Drouin down to line 2 just for a few shifts, seeing Lehkonen up there as well. Certainly that combination of Lehkonen, Necas, and McKinnon worked on that goal. And how about Artturi Lehkonen scoring his 21st goal of the season? Was that tie a career high for him? And you mentioned, he has more even strength goals than Mikko Rantanen this season. Raj, you mentioned that recently. So look, Drouin's a good player. I think Lehkonen's a better player. I wouldn't mind seeing Lehkonen up with Necas and McKinnon, and then when Nichushkin's back, I'd consider putting. I think your 3 best players, your best line. If you want to stack it and go with your best line, it would be McKinnon, Necas, and Nichushkin.
Yeah, I think that is going to be. I think that's going to be the line because I think you need to have a bigger bodied puck hunter on that top line. While Lecky he's great, his forechecking ability is awesome. There are times where being a 5'10" guy is a losing battle, and there's nothing you can do about it. I like the idea of putting Nichushkin up on top with McKinnon and Netchus, and I like the idea of moving Arturi Lekkinen down to give Casey Middlestat a little bit of help on that second line. The question coming in from Twitch, curious a call if you have Middlestat take a defensive zone draw on the Romanov goal. I will try and figure out, did the Romanov goal come off of an icing?
I can't remember. Yeah, it was defensive zone face off. Middlestat lost to Casey Cizikas. I can't even let me go look at the game log.
No, this is an Adam Pellick shot saved by Mackenzie Blackwood, and then Middlestat's line goes out with 2:32 to go. Yeah, that's a questionable move from Bednar there. If you need to win that draw, Jack Drury might have to be your face-off get-off guy right now. Even though like Drury might not be the guy that gives you the greatest offensive upside, in situations where you have to win draws, I would put 18 on the ice, get your possession, have him hustle off, and hope that you can hold that possession for that 10 to 15 seconds in at the very most in the line change and get another guy out there.
Was Ross Colton out there with Middlestat on that quick little sequence, quick little shift? I thought I saw 20 out there.
On the Romanov one?
Yeah, on the Romanov goal.
I can tell you in 1 second. The Romanov goal had defensively Ross Colton, Miles Wood, Casey Middlestat, Josh Manson, and Samuel Girard.
So it's essentially the third line, except instead of Jack Drury, it's Casey Middlestat. Now, if that was Casey's last face-off of the night, he was hitting at a 50% clip before that because he won 6, lost 7. I'm going to assume that was his last face-off of the night. So he was 6 of 12. He was hitting at 50% going into that. They only had Jack Drury take 4 face-offs in the game tonight. He was 50%, 2 and 2. Parker Kelly was 4 out of 10. Nathan MacKinnon had a great night in the face-off circle, although I'm sure that was probably McKinnon's line was out there just before and he wasn't available. McKinnon won 14 out of 21. He won 2/3 of his draws tonight. So look, Middlestat was 6 and 6. He was 6 of 12 coming into that face-off. Essentially, he loses that one. Casey's been playing better, maybe a little more of a down game from him today. But going with Middlestat, Colton, and Wood there, I noticed more variations. I don't think Juuso Parssinen played. Did Juuso Parssinen play at all in the third period? I didn't notice him out there. And they really, that's where you miss Nichushkin. Maybe just look, Juuso Parssinen had a good weekend, but their 6th best forward with Nichushkin out is Ross Colton. And I know they want to play Colton and Wood together, but Juuso was fun, but man, I have Ross Colton up there.
Parssinen played 4 shifts in the third period, 33 seconds, 46 seconds, 39 seconds, and 50 seconds. He was on ice for the Jack Drury goal that made it 3-2.
Okay. He was invisible then, was Juuso Parssinen. So, and that's going to happen. This is a guy that the Avs took a flyer on who has a bunch of skill, but putting him into the top 6, like that was going to peter out eventually. You were out kicking your coverage there if you're Juuso Parssinen. So I don't know, maybe you put Colton back in the top 6 because I just feel like once again tonight, the second line, they were most dangerous when it was whoever was out there with MacKinnon and Necas, and that second line, it's not dangerous right now. It's just not.
No, it hasn't been. I've seen a lot of comments on whether it's been in the chat or on Twitter about how do the Avs always get goalied. This is a game that you should have looked at and went, you could have gotten goalied in this one, and it's not something that comes out of left field. Like Ilya Sorokin, that dude finished top 10 in the MVP voting 2 years ago. He has finished top 8 in the Vezina the last 3 years. He was second in the Vezina 2 seasons ago when I believe Igor Shesterkin won it, and he was a damn good player for the like. Ilya Sorokin's a top 5. Is he a top 5 goalie in the world? Probably. He might be number 5, maybe number 6, something like that.
He's in that. Yeah, I was actually ranking in my head the goalies recently because of how well Blackwood has played. And yeah, Sorokin definitely in that conversation. When you go top 5, top 6, certainly top 10. Absolutely. And it's hard to get a top 10 goaltender in this league. I firmly believe the Avs have one right now. And the Islanders do as well.
And I see the comment there from Mish saying that the Avs are 29th in PDO, and as a stat, like PDO is it's shooting percentage plus save percentage, and typically teams that are at 29th in the league aren't getting overly goalied. They're not scoring, and that's the truth. Whether it's snake bitten or they're not getting enough high danger opportunities. It's funny, like the Avs notoriously this year, what haven't they done? They haven't gone to the gritty areas. They haven't gone to the front of the net, the areas that normally bigger bodies occupy, right? And they go to the area that you need to. You have to go to the gritty area to score a goal today. You go to the front of the crease, and the first time that they do it, they score, and it gets called back. So you can't have it both ways. Like I've seen comments saying, "Hey, crazy, you can't be in the crease. Get your butt out of the middle of the goaltender's face." And I go, "Well, where else do you want him to? You want to be on the perimeter, on the outside? What's happening here? Like either you want them to be gritty and gross and go to the areas where lesser skilled hockey teams go to score goals, or you don't. Like they went there, and unfortunately, it didn't go their way tonight."
Well, they need to have some games where they just commit from the start. Like we are either going to throw pucks on net or we're not. And what's funny, and real quick, why I say that is, there was a power play opportunity that they had in this game where they worked really hard to feed Artturi Lehkonen in the bumper area, and then Lehkonen passed the shot up. That was before Lehkonen's goal. So it must have been 1-0 or scoreless at the time. And it's just like, dude, throw that thing on net. Like, you just do it.
McKinnon passed one up today too. That was unacceptable. They tried to make like 5 passes. McKinnon had a one-timer open back door. He tried to slide it. It goes by the wayside. Shoot the puck, dude.
Yeah, sometimes you're not going to get the perfect look. Just throw something on net, and you might not have Val down there, but Lehkonen, and I'd like to see, Necas has shown he can work a little in front of net. So just throw it in there and see what happens. Even if you don't have Val, Leckie and Necas, they can work in front of net. But what's funny is in this 3-game road trip, the one game where they got outshot and kind of outpossessed and out zone timed and out attempted, they won. And the 2 games where it was flipped, where they were, more attempts, more looks, more zone time, they lose. But despite not having a higher volume of those in the Rangers game, they're maybe a little too peripheral, playing on the periphery in the Boston and the Islanders game. Too much from the outside instead of really trying to work the puck inside. And look, I get it. That's tough to do against the New York Islanders. That is one of those teams that plays that way, big defensively, gums it up. We use several of those teams in the Western Conference. New York's definitely that in the Eastern Conference. And the Avs, they couldn't get inside today.
Spring. All right, I'm done kind of talking about this hockey game.
That's it.
You said you had one thing remaining on the Mikko Rantanen trade before we sign off for the evening. Before we get back, Avs next game is on Friday. Yes, Friday against the St. Louis Blues at home.
Yeah, so the quotes, we haven't talked much about the quotes. Starting with Mikko apparently talking with that Finnish newspaper. And I saw it. I wasn't sure if it was real or not. And it must be real because then he had the exact same comments to Peter Baugh of The Athletic, who now covers New York hockey. That's why he talked to Mikko before that Islanders game. Islanders beat the Hurricanes too. That was overtime. That was Mikko's debut. And Mikko again saying today before the Hurricanes game with the Rangers, his comments are all very similar. It's something along the lines of, I was willing to take a discount. I'm a little surprised by what has happened. I thought I was going to sign an extension. I thought that that was ultimately how it was going to play out. I'm confused by Mikko's comments. It tells me either him and his agent had terrible communication, or even Mikko's quote unquote discounted number was still north of where the Avs were willing to pay him.
Okay, so I had conversations today with very, very, very reputable sources within the organization this morning about this very same topic, because I saw these things and I asked the questions of, hey, are those numbers true? Is what Mikko is saying true? It feels as though the Octagon Sports group is on the offensive on the PR, which is what they should be doing. And both it's funny in these situations, both the team and the player are at fault and completely not at fault all at the same time. The majority of the time that these type of issues arise. What I found out today was the $11.75 million number that I believe Elliot Friedman was the first one to report either yesterday or the day before, that the Avalanche offered at $11.75 million is, it's a good number. That is I wouldn't say it's completely true, but it's a very good number. It might even be a little bit below what the actual offer is that they made. The offer that was put on the table made Mikko Rantanen the highest paid winger in the National Hockey League. And that got him over the Artemi Panarin, $11.5 million, and it met the value, if not exceeded the value, that Elliot Friedman threw out there at 11.75. It, however, did not come to what Mikko Rantanen's camp deemed was their salary floor. And while Rantanen is true in saying, we were willing to take a discount, the market value that Rantanen's camp, clearly, at least from what I'm seeing and from what I heard, the value is being pushed around at 14 million, between 13.5 to 14 million on the open market. Now, what's a discount? Is a discount $250,000, $500,000, a full million? If that number was 14 and your discount goes to 13, there's still $1.25 million delta between what you're talking about. And I don't know if the Avalanche were ever going to get there. In fact, I know that they were never going to get there, because they were willing to go as high as, and this is what I've heard, they were probably willing to go as high as just south of what Nathan MacKinnon was making. And that should have been okay. That would have very clearly made you the highest paid winger in the National Hockey League, would have gotten you close to $100 million. And if that's true, and the team realized that we were never going to get to 13, if that's the cap floor, the salary floor that Mikko Rantanen's camp had, you had no choice but to move this. You had no choice but to move this.
No, and obviously, I'm sure you and many others watched what Ryan Whitney had to say on Spittin' Chicklets, and
all of that is true. Everything that Whit said today, all of that from my research today and my calls this morning. Today, all of that is, Whit was 100% right.
Yeah, because you echoed a lot of it there, and you and him make good points that Mikko is a winger, Leon Draisaitl is a center, and your value is just going to be a little higher when you can play the middle of the ice as well. Speaking of that, talking about getting net front, I saw somebody talk about Mikko with the Hurricanes, like, well, hey, we like him, we know he can get net front, and I'm like, have you really watched Mikko? He doesn't do a lot of that.
More of a net adjacent guy.
Yeah, he likes to post up on that wing over there for all that 6'4" frame of his. He's very effective at it though. But yeah, not necessarily that. So like, Mikko wouldn't quell the Avs' problems, tonight, or if you're talking about getting physical in front of net, that's not a Mikko thing. But yeah, Draisaitl plays the middle of the ice, and positionally, Mikko is a winger, and okay, you would have set the market as a winger. That's a pretty good deal, actually. And another thing on the blindsided front is, the Carolina Hurricanes GM seems like a pretty bright dude. This Eric Tulsky. He And he said, look, it's not like I reached out to the Avs specifically. I reached out to every team and just said, hey, what do you got? What do you think could happen? And I'm sure when he called the Avs, he knew. And this is in the summer. He's calling them in the summer in June. And he's saying, hey, what's the deal with Mikko? What's the deal with Mikko? He's a UFA after this season. Could there be something there? And he kept calling back, just doing his due diligence. And then he said today, what I had just said, he had said on the Daily Faceoff a couple days ago. Today, Eric Tulsky went on Sirius XM NHL radio, and he said that this trade has been in the works for a couple of weeks now. Like a trade, and Elliot Friedman said this, the night of or the next morning, that, a trade like that doesn't just come together overnight. This has been in the works for several days.
Kyle Davidson was at Ball Arena 4 straight games. And I told you there was a reason. I thought it was because Taylor Hall was going to come to Colorado or because they were kicking the tires on Seth Jones. He was in the building because he was talking to Chris McFarland about being the money launderer for the deal.
So I don't know how Mikko wouldn't be aware, how his agent especially wouldn't be aware. So he either has the worst agent of all time, or man, a lot of people were sending texts that did not go through. I don't know how you could be blindsided here based on all the evidence we have at hand.
And DNVR did have a really good write-up that AJ Hafley did today. So if you guys have DNVR, go read that. It is worth your time. It goes through the entire chronology that Spring was talking about that started in June of this past year at the draft with Tulsky reaching out to other teams. The other portion of this was, well, we thought we were going to go to the finish line. And in this situation, the finish line would have been March 7th, right? Because in the Avs point of view, they weren't going to allow him to be Paul Stastny, where you just lose him for nothing. They weren't going to allow him to be, as Spring said so eloquently on the night that the trade happened, they weren't going to allow him to be Jonathan Tavares. New York Islanders, that had all happened a handful of years ago with the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were expecting to go up until the goal line. Now, that can change very drastically when other rumors about other players start circulating. Because when you think about JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, there's a team out there that is always part of those rumors to get one of those two players. The Carolina Hurricanes were always in those conversations. And Vancouver's ready to deal one of those two guys. So I think it's a heady play that McFarland looked at that and went, well, if Carolina trades for JT Miller, they can't trade for Mikko Rantanen. If they trade for Elias Pettersson, they can't trade for Mikko Rantanen. And then you're left without a dance partner. And that would have been worst case scenario, because then you are forced to keep Mikko in camp and hope that he doesn't leave you on July 1st for absolutely nothing. And that was a very, very obvious danger. If we're looking at the number, there was a $1.5 million delta at the most there. At the least, there was like $1 million delta between the team and the player. And for a team that's in a cap crunch, you can't do that. Spring, I crunched a few of the numbers, and I did it in like a rudimentary sense. Let's say that Cale Makar in 2027 is a UFA. So they don't extend him next offseason. They let him go into the summer, and you have to sign him to a record-breaking deal. Let's say that the cap is $100 million that year. Is that an okay assumption?
I mean, I'm a pessimist when it comes to
it might be too high,
cap,
right?
But
it might be too high. So I'm giving the Avs grace in this situation. It might not even be $100 million, but I'm saying 2 years from now, $100 million. If you were to factor in, and everyone's going, oh, you could have kept all these guys. You could have done it. You could have done it. Chris McFarland's looking at Edmonton going, their best chance is last year, this year, and then they're screwed. I don't want to be those guys in a few years. If you keep Cale, Nate, Mikko, Val, Taves, Middlestat, Blackwood, Lehkonen, those players that are signed, those impact players that are signed through that 2027 date, and you sign Mikko Rantanen to a $13 million deal through 8 years, and Cale Makar sets the record for highest paid defenseman in the National Hockey League. Let's call it $12.5 million, which would beat Carlson by $1.5 million. Pretty good number?
$100 million. I can see Cale getting 13, but yeah, let's go with 12.5.
Let's go with 12.5 because I've already, bumped Rantanen
And
up.
that's probably fair.
That leaves you with, assuming it's $100 million cap in 2 years. Again, that's a very grand assumption. That leaves you with $32 million to fill out another 14 players on the roster. That's an average of $2.28 million per player when you would have need to have signed a second line wing, which goes from $5.5 to $8 million on the market right now, let alone 2 years from now, the entirety of a third line, the entirety of a fourth line, the entirety of a second D pairing, and the entirety of a third D pairing, not to mention a backup goaltender. You would have had to have done all of that with an average of $2.28 million per player. You couldn't field a team. It wasn't feasible. It wasn't feasible. It sucks. It hurts. It hurt everyone. It hurt McFarland. It hurt his teammates. It hurt Bednar. It hurts me. It felt like a kick to the nuts, man. But you had to do it.
No, that right there is why, going back to the early stages of this season, I was not sure whether or not Mikko Rantanen would be on this team going forward. I was worried that they would turn into the Toronto Maple Leafs if they did that. And that is where I say, and I hate to see Mikko go. I wish that. See, I say that I want to say I wish there was no salary cap, but who the hell knows what the league would look like if there was no salary cap, where Colorado would be. But I would love for all of our guys to be on this team, but from a money standpoint, and unless Mikko is like just amazing, and he's very, very good, but I don't know if I can say that that player is amazing. I can't do it. I can't do it. And sure enough, that is exactly what has happened.
Yeah, he's the Hall of Famer. I still think he deserves to have his jersey retired here. I don't think he's going to get booed, nor do I think he should get booed unless this gets ugly somehow, but I just don't see it getting ugly. Like, I think we're in the ugliest part of it right now, of this breakup. I think this is both camps are trying to win the breakup type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it getting uglier moving forward. There is a world in which, like, you remember Cliff Lee?
Yes, Phillies,
left-handed pitcher. Yep.
Yeah.
Remember when he was a Philly for the first time, and then Philly traded him, I believe, to Seattle.
Yeah.
At the trade deadline, because Philly wasn't going to make the playoffs, and he was a unrestricted free agent and was going to hit the market. And Philly went, we don't want to lose an all-star left-handed starting pitcher for nothing. They traded him to Seattle. He played the rest of the year with Seattle. And who did he sign with in the offseason?
Yeah.
The Philadelphia Phillies.
That reminds me of that happened to Aroldis Chapman. The Yankees traded him to the Cubs or something like, and then they traded, and then the Yankees signed him in the offseason or something like that. But it happened with Aroldis Chapman too. I think that was the Gleyber Torres deal. That's what got Gleyber to the Yankees. And now Gleyber's a Tiger, I believe. Man, he's going to miss that short porch and right at Yankee Stadium.
America's not a fun place to play, man.
God, Gleyber Torres made a living off of that thing. Yeah,
it's a long shot for it to happen. Like, crazier things have happened, and it's obviously been a thing in Major League Baseball twice over the last 15 years.
I think Mikko Rantanen's contract extension, it will be determined by how he performs in the Stanley Cup playoffs for the Carolina Hurricanes. Even if he has let's say he has a torrid rest of the regular season, that'll definitely help his number. But if he goes sit in the playoffs, like, the playoffs to me are key. Let's say he has a very weak remainder of the regular season with Carolina. Look, we're seeing it with Necas, even though he looks like a damn good player. There's chemistry things you got to figure out, right? And that's, I think, another reason why these teams wanted to do this sooner than closer to the deadline, or as early as possible, to get a chemistry thing figured out before the playoffs start. The more reps, the more games, the more time, the better your chemistry is going to be. Let's fix this thing. Let's get started on this thing in January instead of March. He could have a slower rest of the regular season, but if he crushes it in the playoffs on a national stage, he'll make his money. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch the Carolina Hurricanes in the playoffs this year, specifically for Mikko Rantanen.
I'm going to watch a lot of Hurricanes hockey. I know that.
It's kind of like we got an Eastern Conference team now in a way. Like always have a soft spot in my heart for the Hurricanes, and the Hurricanes and Avs have always been friendly with each other. It's a good organization. I always talk about how much I like Rod Brindamore. You like him. Him and Bednar are maybe my two favorite coaches in the league. Like both these teams, their GM seems sharp. Avs GM is sharp. Like I like the marriage, or the symbiosis going on between these two teams.
And there's still no guarantee that you mentioned Eric Tolsky's name, the GM out there in Carolina. There's still no guarantee that Carolina is going to re-sign him. Because I heard Vic talking about it this morning, and it is a logical step to take. Going, you wouldn't give up that much: a second, a fourth, a legit third/fourth center, and a legit top line wing. He's a top. Marty Necas is a top line wing. That's who he is. You wouldn't give that up for just a rental of 3 months. Carolina did that last season. They've done that within the past calendar year with Jake Gensel. They gave up a conditional first, a conditional fourth, or a fifth, one of the two, and Bunting to Pittsburgh for Jake Gensel, for a player that you looked at that they probably would have wanted to re-sign. And Gensel was okay for them. He didn't light the world on fire. Granted, Jake Gensel is not Mikko Rantanen, and he never will be. But he's a pretty damn good player when he's got some guys next to him, namely Sidney Crosby and Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov. They didn't re-sign him in the offseason, Spring. They had to flip him at the draft for a third-round draft pick to give Tampa Bay the signing rights so that Tampa could sign him to an 8-year extension, which they did. Carolina has made this deal before and failed to sign the guy, either because they didn't think he was the right fit or Carolina wasn't willing to pay the money. And historically, that ownership group out there in Carolina isn't willing to pay the money. There's no guarantee Mikko Rantanen is a Carolina Hurricane for the next 8 years.
No, you're right. The Hurricanes don't usually shell out those big old contracts like that. When the trade was made, my first thought was, oh, he's re-signing for sure. Like just subconscious instinct. Yeah, he's re-signing or he'll sign with the Hurricanes. Then the next day or two, I thought about it and I was like, I'm not so sure. Now it will be interesting, if he just lights it up, regular season and playoffs included. And it's like, holy crap, Mikko was this, dog just ready to be unchained and be the man, and he's taking advantage of every opportunity, and holy shit, he's better than Nathan MacKinnon. Maybe he'll outprice himself. Maybe he's making north of 14 million. Eat your heart out, Leon Draisaitl. Or maybe he's a dud and Carolina's like, ooh, never mind. But hey, we didn't give up too much. Necas was going to be a free agent the following season. Drury's fine. The picks are good, but not great. But another thing that Eric Tolsky said today is that compared to last year, when he said they didn't have a lot of cap space to re-sign Gensel, this offseason he's anticipating to have a little more cap space. And I think they will finally make the swing and pay somebody $13-ish million. Raj, you talked about it the other day, how Carolina is not paying a single player on their roster more than $10 million. At a certain point, you got to go into the big boy pool and swim in the deep end a little bit. I think they're finally going to do it here.
I think the other thing with the Avs about this situation, Coach Stanford had a really good point today on our show. He goes, it's not like the Avs traded away their only guy. It's not like they traded away the only dude who can put up 100 points on this team. He's like, they've got an MVP. They have the best defensive player or defenseman in the world who can put up 100 points in his own right. It's not like they traded away the one guy on the franchise that has that ability. Carolina got the one guy on their franchise now that has that ability, 50 goals and 100 points.
Yeah, so, they didn't have that guy. Most don't have that guy. The Avs had three.
You and I have gone over that.
You're almost not in today's NHL with the salary cap, and even if it goes up over the years, well, that means the contracts will go up over the years. You're really not allowed to have three for an extended period of time. And what we saw with Cale, Mikko, and Nate was an extended period of time. And there's just a deadline on that. There's just going to be a deadline on that for every team in the league, unless you want to go Toronto Maple Leafs. And it's fun. You sell jerseys, you sell tickets, and you score a lot of goals, but your third and fourth line screw you. Your deep pairs screw you. Your goaltending screws you. Well, we got some all-stars though. Hey, we're winning Hart trophies and Norris's, but are we really winning games? And that's the Avs chose wisely, I think. I think that this was the prudent and wise move. Sometimes that's not the sexy move. But most teams don't have even one guy. Now Carolina finally has one, and I'm rooting for him. His assist tonight was it was cheeky. It was cheeky, and now he's playing with Svechnikov and Aho. That should be fun. I think that honestly, this is a win-win for both franchises based on how both rosters were and now are constructed.
Completely agree. Although Nate just had 2 better assists than Mikko did tonight.
Yeah, he sure did. That's going to be kind of like
might
underrated.
Be burgundy glasses, but both of those passes were awesome.
That's going to be underrated to see like how Necas plays with MacKinnon and just to compare Necas to Rantanen. And I got a sneaky hunch it might not be that different at all.
I'll do it for us. Avs fall 5-2 with an empty netter against the New York Islanders. Next time you guys will hear us. You'll actually hear us both before and after the Avs game on Friday. We'll do Berto's Blitz, or rather the Blitz on Friday, Spring and myself, prior to the Avs and the St. Louis Blues at home. I'll be your network host that game, and then we'll be back on doing Between the Pipes right after the Avs take on division rival St. Louis for Spring. For our friends at Safeway, I'm Alex Ranemi. Thank you guys so much for watching us on Twitch, on YouTube, wherever you guys get the podcast as well. Just search Between the Pipes on Spotify, Apple, Spreaker, wherever you guys download your stuff. We'll talk to you guys on Friday. Later.